Hey again, everyone. Greetings. I'm back twice in a day. It's Naomi Wolf with the 1560 Geneva Bible reading Numbers 26, the Hebrew Bible, Masoretic text, the Chabad version, and the Revised Standard Version. Things are really heating up. We had the last 3 or 4 chapters. Sorry, I know I always get comments about keeping my hair out of my face. Once again, I don't have hairspray handy. You'll just have to bear with me. We went through the last 3 or 4 chapters about Balaam and Balak and how the Midianite king asked Balaam to curse the children of Israel. And Balaam said multiple times, I can't curse a people that God has blessed. And multiple times he said that God put in his mouth the sentence, I'll bless those who bless you and I'll curse those who curse you. So that happened. And the last chapter ended with Balaam, saying again to Balak, I told your princes that you sent ahead of time that you could give me all the gold and silver, filling up your house or my house, and I still can't say anything than what God in the Most High tells me to say. And I said yesterday that this was notable because Balaam isn't even a member of this tribe, right? We talk a lot about the righteous Gentile, the role of non-Jews in this story. And here's yet another example that Jews and non-Jews have their parts to play in alignment in bringing about God's kingdom of heaven on earth, God's law in the world, manifested in the world, and a reminder that in this faith tradition, it's not just about the afterlife. It's really very little about the afterlife. I mean, there are many prayers saying, God is faithful to lift those who sleep in the dust. But it doesn't dwell on heaven. It mentions heaven fleetingly. It talks about God's activities in heaven, the heavenly hosts, even the Merkava, which is the chariot of God, the sacred chariot, really interesting. The way that angels sing and praise God continually, like there's lots of that. But human beings are always supposed to focus on this world and how to bring about God's wishes and align with his laws, his mitzvot, his commandments in this world, and kind of let the afterlife take care of itself. And trusting that there will be, justice and reuniting with God in the afterlife. But there really isn't the same kind of, assessment upon death. You go to hell, you go to heaven, you go to purgatory. That comes later. That's a Catholic theology that is elaborated, in the early Middle Ages into the High Middle Ages. Certainly finds its apotheosis in Dante's Inferno, and also, later Milton's Paradise Lost, Purgatory, and heaven. So yeah, this is different. You're supposed to do it right on earth in Judaism. And that's not a value judgment. It's just a very interesting difference between these faith traditions. All right, so here we have one of those chapters, Numbers 26, that we just have to plow through. We've had them before. It's a census. And don't fall asleep. We'll find out if there's something exciting about this census, but it's possible that there really isn't. From time to time, they're almost what I would call admin chapters. And you remember in, earlier in Numbers, and also I think once in Exodus, there are these chapters that are just like, okay, here's how you organize people to move through the desert, carrying the Ark of the Covenant. You're on the right, you're on the left, you're at the top, you're at the rear. You carry the rings, you carry the curtains, it's very administrative, and for good reason. The children of Israel are now, over 6 figures of people, 12 tribes, many families, children, animals. It's kind of like moving an army or several battalions through the desert. So it takes a lot of administrating, not to mention not just movement, but fights, contracts, disputes over women, disputes over grazing territory, over water, judgment, crime. All of this is evolving in the desert. So you really have kind of, what it reminds me of, that experiment, which is a little weird for sure, in the 90s, the biosphere, where they took a bunch of people and put them in an isolated biosphere and observed them. Hey, Rose, good evening. My friend, Rose Kelleher, she does not miss a reading. So great to see you. And they scientists observed to see what would happen to humans, kind of cut off into this kind of survival state. And it was a lab, and it didn't end that well, as I recall. But leaving that aside, it's almost like God is taking his time with the children of Israel to work out the kinks and the details of what is a sacred society, what is a holy human society, a human society aligned with God's law, in the desert, where mistakes can be managed, right? And where it's almost like God is learning on the job, just like human beings are learning on the job. And we've talked before about how in Genesis, for sure, you really have this sense of humans learning God, even as God learns humans. And pardon me, I don't know what that says about whether God is omniscient and also able to learn in chronological time, or both of those things can happen together. He can know everything and also not know everything. Those are dimensions of knowledge and insight far beyond me and maybe beyond human consciousness. But it definitely feels like the humanish qualities of God, which I've talked about a lot, which are so obvious and manifest in the Hebrew Chabad Masoretic text before it gets mistranslated, also very obvious in the faithful 1560 Geneva Bible text. God is definitely learning, like, what are the mistakes humans make? How do I avoid that in the future? I had one, and a lot of it is like administrative, like God learning how to manage humans in an organization almost, God learning how to manage a religion that is aligned with him. That's never happened before that we know in human history. So, and God says it's never happened before, right? In this text. So he's learning things like, okay, I had this one guy, Moshe, as the leader, but humans are different from God, and Moshe is tired, and Moshe is coming to me and saying, I can't deal with this. God, these people are too annoying. They're too stiff-necked. They don't listen to me. Kill me now, right? You remember that chapter. Just kill me now. And God had to solve that problem by appointing a council of elders and kind of scattering or sharing his spirit upon this council of elders. So it wasn't just poor human Moshe. So it's fascinating to see God learning like that on a learning curve of managing the world or a sacred society with human beings. It's definitely a first. And yeah, you definitely have the sense that he wants to perfect it in the desert, because the minute they're in contact with other settled peoples, and by now think about psychologically the difference in where the children of Israel are, right? They were in luxury, but slavery, right? They were surrounded by food and, comfort, but they were slaves in Egypt. Then they were dragged out or taken out or released, liberated, thank you, by Moshe and God, mostly God, and brought to the Sinai desert, right? And those of you who have never been to the Sinai, it's now Egypt, right? But which, by the way, I think is important. Like, people are constantly calling modern Israel a settler colonizer, but the Sinai used to be part of Israel, and it is part of the tribe of Israel's founding story. 40 years in the Sinai desert, interacting with God. Some of the most important things to happen happened in the Sinai desert. The 10 Commandments, right? And the golden calf. so much. The development of the tent of meeting, it all happened in the Sinai desert. That place is really harsh. It's amazing. You feel very close to God there for sure. It's awesome, but it's also, almost completely barren. The oases or the sources of water are, days' journeys sometimes from each other by camel or by whatever they were traveling by, donkey. It's not arable land. It is an absolute miracle that these people survived even a journey from Egypt to the edges of the land of Canaan, let alone 40 years in the desert. Like if you were ever in Sinai, you'd see that this myth of the manna from heaven, it's got to be based on something, because there is nothing to eat or practically to drink in the Sinai desert. It's so barren. I mean, it's a moonscape. And I mention that because they were in this lush but pagan and enslaved context in Egypt, then in this absolute moonscape desert wasteland for 40 years, a whole generation, right? 39 years. And then now they're at the edge of civilization again, a new civilization. They're at the edge of, fields and villages, cities are being mentioned, right? This is the Midianites' civilization. And this is a civilization that is, the dangers God was worried about in the Sinai desert as he kept them in this petri dish of complete isolation to make them his people. It's like teaching a kid to drive, and then the first thing they do is head down to where drugs are being dealt, literally the first thing the children of Israel do when they're back around comfort and food and running water. Rivers are mentioned in the last 3 chapters, right? And mountains that are habitable, cities, women, right? Strange women. How exciting. They've been with the same women for 40 years, right? And the women have been with the same men. It's very, very, very seductive. Where the children of Israel are now geographically compared to where they've been for like a generation, right? People have grown up. You've got to imagine 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds born in the desert with nothing, no one around but the children of Israel and their sheep and goats, and a few scary tribes in the distances. And now they're in settled civilization, full of comfort and luxury and seduction, rivers, meaning food and water and cuisine and, comfort, material plenty, and idol worship. And again, Baal was the worst idol. Again, it's so weird to me how these Bible readings really echo or mirror, which is not possible chronologically. The odds are impossible, but they do. They mirror events in the real world. And I'm not saying that, I'm that important, but this text is that important, and it is a magical text. And I mentioned that 3 days ago, Tucker Carlson wrongly misquoted the blessing over the tribe of Israel by God and misattributed it to Ted Cruz. And that happened to coincide with our reading in Numbers 23 and 24 of the blessing by God over the children of Israel. What are the odds? We've been doing these readings for 2 years, but chronologically that gigantic blasphemy, right, or distortion of scripture took place at exactly the moment that we were coming up to that passage in the reading of the Geneva Bible. It just means we can't fathom the complexities of this universe. By the same token, we're reading about the seductions and temptations of Baal and the worship of Baal, and how dangerous it is. And in the last chapter, a man and a woman were speared together through their bodies, the woman through her uterus, it sounded like, because the women of the Midianites are seducing the men of the tribes of Israel to worship Baal, and also to, play the harlot with them, to prostitute themselves with them. These things go together, the sexual seduction and the idolatry. And what are the odds that we're reading about Baal, who whose worship involved the sacrifice of children, one's own children, right? That's how you worshiped Baal. You threw your own son or daughter, baby, into the fire of his idols that had a fire within them that consumed these babies. There are many testimonies about this. And we happen to be reading that the day after the British House of Lords in Parliament passed a bill to allow abortion up until birth, until live birth, 9 months full-term abortions in England, which is a first for any civilized nation. And, there's an outcry in England. It's barely being covered by the American legacy media, which is shocking. It's a huge story, but it's like literally Baal worship, literally the sacrifice of the innocents. What are the odds? But anyway, let's go ahead and see what Numbers 26 says. I can't promise you a thrilling ride, but these passages are, they're all important. They all add up to a larger whole. So let me share my screen. And you can, if you don't have a physical 1560 Geneva Bible, which if you can afford to get one, I recommend it. It's not cheap. It's about $40, $50, but it's a beautiful thing to own. But if you can't, understandably, times are tough. This is a free PDF at archive.org, the Geneva Bible 1560 PDF. And this is chapter 26, and it's an exact facsimile. And again, the subtext is not in the text. It's editorial. The Lord commands to number, that is to count, the children of Israel in the plain of Moab from 20-year-old and above. The Levites and their families, none of them that were numbered at Sinai go into Canaan, save Caleb and Joshua. So that's intense. And the note says, which came for their whoredom and idolatry. So let's see what is going to happen that caused that note. And now the text begins. And so after the plague, you remember there was a plague in the last chapter because God was so upset that the children of Israel were whoring around with false gods and, women of other nations, right? The Lord spoke unto Moshe and to Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saying, take the number of all the congregation of the children of Israel from 20-year-old and above throughout their fathers' houses, all that go forth to war in Israel. So Moshe and Eleazar the priest spoke unto them in the plain of Moab by Jordan toward Jericho, saying, where the river is near to Jericho, saying, from 20-year-old and above, ye shall number the people as the Lord had commanded Moshe and the children of Israel when they came out of the land of Egypt. Reuven, the firstborn of Israel, the children of Reuven were Hanoch, of whom came the family of the Hanochites, and of Palu, the family of the Paluites, of Heshron, the family of the Heshronites, of Carmi, the family of the Carmites. These are the families of the Reubenites, and they were number 340,730. And the sons of Palu, Eliav, and the sons of Eliav, Nemuel, and Datan, and Abiram. This Datan and Abiram were famous in the congregation and strove against Moses and against Aaron in the assembly of Korah, in that rebellion whereof Korah was head, when they strove against the Lord. And you remember that. You remember what happened. And the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up with Korah when the congregation died, what time the fire consumed 250 men who were for a sign. And the note says that is for an example that other should not murmur and rebel against God's ministers. Notwithstanding, all the sons of Korah died not. And the children of Simeon, after their families, were Nemuel, of whom came the family of the Nemuelites, of Yamin, the family of the Yamites, of Yakin, the family of the Yakinites, of Zerah, the family of the Zarhites, of Shaul, the family of the Shaulites. These are the families of the Simeonites, 220,200. The sons of Gad, after their families, were Tzephon, of whom came the family of the Tzephonites, of Chagi, the family of the Chagites, of Shuni, the family of the Shunites, of Ozni, the family of the Oznites, of Eri, the family of the Erites, of Arod, the family of the Arodites, of Areli, the family of the Arelites. These are the families of the sons of Gad, according to their numbers, 40,500. The sons of Judah, and Onan. Could be Yudan, and Onan. No, it's Judah. But and Onan and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And it says, before Jacob went into Egypt. So were the sons of Judah, after their families. Of Shelah came the family of the Shelonites, of Pharez, the family of the Pharzites, of Tzerah, the family of the Tzatites. And the sons of Pharez were of Chevron, the family of the Chephronites, of Chamul, the family of the Chamulites. These are the families of Judah after their numbers, 70 and 6,500. The sons of Issachar after their families were Tola, of whom came the family of the Tolaites, of Puah, the family of the Punites, of Yashub, the families of the Yashubites, of Shimron, the family of the Shimronites. These are the families of Issachar after their numbers, 64,300. The sons of Zevulun after their families were of Sered, the family of the Sardites, of Elon, the family of the Elonites, of Yachliel, the family of the Yachlielites. These are the families of the Zebulunites after their numbers, 65,500. The sons of Yosef after their families were Manasseh and Ephraim. The sons of Manasseh were of Machir, the family of the Machrites, and Machir begat Gilad. Of Gilad came the family of the Gileadites. These are the sons of Gilead, of Yezer, the family of the Yezerites, of Helek, the family of the Helekites, of Asiel, the family of the Asriel, the family of the Asrielites, of Shechem, possibly the family of the Shechmites, of Shemudah, the family of the Shemidaites, of Chefer, the family of the Cheferites. And Zelopehad had the son of Chefer, and Zelopehad, the son of Chefer, had no sons but daughters. And the names of the daughters of Zelopehad were Machla and Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirza. And I'll tell you, Noah and Tirza are still feminine names in modern Hebrew. These are the families of Manasseh, and the number of them 250,700. These are the sons of Ephraim after their families. Of Shutelah came the family of the Shutelites, of Becher the family of the Bachrites, of Tahan the family of the Tahanites. And these are the sons of Shutelah, of Eran the family of the Eranites. These are the families of the sons of Ephraim after their numbers, 230,500. These are the sons of Joseph after their families. These are the sons of Benjamin after their families. Of Bela came the family of the Baalites, of Ashbel the family of the Ashbelites, of Ahiram the family of the Ahiramites, of Shupham the family of the Shuphamites, of Hufam the family of the Hufamites. And the sons of Bela were Ard and Naaman. Naaman is still a male name in modern Hebrew. It is also the same root as my name, Naomi. It means pleasant, Naim. Of Ard came the family of the Ardites, of Naaman the family of the Naamites. These are the sons of Benjamin, after their families, and their numbers 40,600. These are the sons of Dan after their families. And of course, Dan is still a modern name. Of Shuhan came the family of the Shuhamites. These are the families of Dan after their households. All the families of the Shuhamites were after their numbers, 64,400. The sons of Asher after their families were Yimna, the family of the Yimnites, of Ishui, the family of the Ishuiites, of Beriah, the family of the Beriites. The sons of Beriah were of Heber, the family of the Heberites, of Malchiel, the family of the Malchielites, and the names of the daughters of Asher was, and the name of the daughter of Asher was Sarah. Also today a modern name. To this day, a 3,500-year-old name. Isn't that incredible? Like Abraham. These are the families of the sons of Asher after their numbers, 350,400. The sons of Naphtali after their families were of Yachzeel, the families of the Yachzeelites, of Guni, the family of the Gunites, of Yezer, the family of the Izrites, of Shilem, the family of the Shilemites. These are the families of Naphtali according to their households and their number, 540,400. These are the numbers of the children of Israel, 601,730. And the Lord spoke unto Moshe, saying, unto these the land shall be divided for an inheritance according to the number of names. This is why, you guys, so many people are trying to erase the reading of the Hebrew Bible and make sure that Christians don't read the primary text of the Hebrew Bible, because over and over and over again, and I'm not making a geopolitical claim, I'm just saying it's right here from 3,500 years ago. I'm giving you this land. And not only is it a vague promise to the children of Israel to give them this land, but it's an elaborate, almost legalistic contract between God and the children of Israel, including like inheritance laws, right? And you could say that humans made it all up, but it is very detailed. So let's go back to the text. And the Lord spoke unto Moshe, saying, unto these the land shall be divided for an inheritance according to the number of names. It's like a will. To many thou shalt give the more inheritance, and to few thou shalt give less inheritance. To everyone according to his number shall be given his inheritance. And I hope you hear the impact of these texts on modern ideas. Marx, of course, said from each according to his needs, to each according to his abilities, from each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs. And there's an echo in that of this, to everyone according to his number shall be given his inheritance. And this is kind of, it's not really Marxist, but it's definitely central planning, that the larger tribes get more land and the smaller tribes get less land. Or it's kind of like congressional districting, you know. Notwithstanding, the land shall be divided by lot. According to the names of the tribes of their fathers, they shall inherit. According to the lot shall the possession thereof be divided between many and few. These also are the numbers of the Levites after their families. Of Gershon came the family of the Gershonites, of Kohat, the family of the Kohatites, of Merari, the family of the Merarites. These are the families of Levi, the family of the Libnites, the family of the Hebronites, the family of the Machlites, the family of the Mushites, the family of the Korhites, and Kohat begat Amram. And Amram's wife was called Yocheved, and Yocheved is also a modern Hebrew female name. The daughter of Levi, which was born unto Levi in Egypt. And she bore unto Amram, Aaron, and Moshe, and Miriam, their sister. So this is Moses' mom, Yocheved. And unto Aaron were born Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Itamar. And Nadab and Abihu, as you recall, died because they offered strange fire before the Lord. And their numbers were 320,000, all males from a month old and above, for they were not numbered among the children of Israel, because there was none inheritance given them among the children of Israel. These are the numbers of Moshe and Eleazar the priest, which numbered the children of Israel in the plain of Moab, near Jordan, toward Jericho. And among these, there was not a man of them whom Moshe and Aaron the priest numbered, when they told the children of Israel in the wilderness, meaning counted the children of Israel in the wilderness of Sinai. And the note says, wherein appears the great power of God that so wonderfully increased his people. Well, that's for sure. For the Lord said of them, they shall die in the wilderness. So there was not left a man of them save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun. So that's the end of that chapter, you guys. And I don't think I'm going to read the Hebrew. I'll show you the Hebrew. Okay. I've got lots of comments in the comments section already. So it just whips up so much emotion to this day, these conversations, this text from so long ago. I am going to let you glance at the Hebrew because it's always useful to look at it and to see if there's anything that really jumps out. But this is, again, mostly an administrative, can you see my screen? I think you can. Yes, you can. It's mostly an administrative chapter. But while we're going through this administrative chapter, which literally counts the families that descend from these 12 tribes, right? I guess a couple of things come to mind for me. One is that there is this chapter that counts all these people. And that word arises again, that theme, verisimilitude. Hey, my husband just came home. I'm live, baby. And of course, Brian is Loki's favorite. I've accepted that. Loki loves me, but he loves Brian best. But Brian's very, very happy because, I'm sorry, Loki's very happy, no doubt. Brian's very happy because Brian just came back from a trip. So verisimilitude. This is not an exciting chapter narratively. Not much is going on except for kind of a pause in the very dramatic narrative. They're in a dramatic place. They're near Jericho, near the Jordan River, where many, like 1,500 years later, Jesus Christ would be baptized by John the Baptist in that river, in the Jordan River. And it's like the outer edge of the land of Israel. And I think they're on the east. I think Moab is on the east because I know that Moses is going to die on the east of the Jordan River. And in fact, when I was in Jordan, I was taken, I guess there are many such hills, but that are called the place where Moses died, looking out over the plain in beautiful, stark plain in which you can see Jericho, one of the most ancient cities, if not the most ancient continually inhabited city on earth. And you can see this, the Jordan River, of course, and you can see the Judean hills, these beautiful bare hills going up to Jerusalem, right? So that is now no longer in the land of Israel, modern Israel, but which is why I note, I'm not making a geopolitical point, but the boundaries of biblical Israel are, bigger than the boundaries of modern Israel. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I think a two-state solution is great. I respect the Palestinian people and sovereignty. I am just noting that they're way over to the east of what is now what's called occupied territory of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, which is Palestinian now. It's not part of the land of Israel today. But in the narrative from 3,500 years ago, they're on the edge of the promised land, and they're preparing to go into the promised land. So the reason I mention this word verisimilitude again is that there are all these names, and it's not, again, it's not a stirring chapter. It's not a heroic chapter. It's not a chapter in which anything happens except that people are counted and named. And that, again, is one of those narrative details, reading not as a theologian, but as an English major, that makes me think that something real happened here, because why name all these people unless they existed? The other interesting thing to me is that the priestly family, the Levites, had no land. They didn't get a chunk of the property that these people are about to move into and take possession of. Why? Because God always, forever, wanted their role to be as priests, not as farmers, not as warriors, not as city builders, but a whole 12th of the people are supposed to be a priestly family, just tending the temple, tending the sacrifice, tending the tent of meeting, and tending to the spiritual needs of the children of Israel. And so they don't have any land, making them very dependent on the piety of the children of Israel in order to live, right? They get a share, as you recall, of the meat offerings and the oil offerings and the flour offerings. That's their salary, essentially. And this became a problem, by the time that Jesus of Nazareth walked on the earth, because by that time, at least according to Jesus, and I'm sure I can imagine this happening, the priests in the temple, which at that time was the second temple, in a very incredible, splendid, amazing temple built by Solomon, much further on in the story, you can still see the stones of that temple in the form of what's called the Wailing Wall. That's the base of Solomon's temple. But it was a majestic structure, and the priests had become very rich and powerful by his day. And that's why there were money changers outside the temple, because people would have to buy pigeons or buy goats. They'd come from wherever they lived all over the land of Judea or Israel, and they would have to change money to buy the material to sacrifice in the temple. And so there were profits being made by everyone involved in this. And you remember that Jesus of Nazareth overturned the tables of the money changers and was very critical of the priests, because he felt like they had become, like critiques of the Roman Catholic Church in the Middle Ages, they had become too rich, too complacent, separated from the primary mission of serving God and serving people in serving God. And you remember way back to Exodus and Leviticus that the role of the priests is not to be fancy or rich, but really to be a servant and really to assist ordinary humans bringing their sacrifices and getting close to God. So that's one thing I want to note. The other thing I want to note is, I've said many times that the values of the West originated with the Hebrew Bible, and of course then with the with the Christian Gospels, right? That's and also absorbing the legacy of Greece and Rome. There's no question about that. One of the values of the West that is being threatened right now, in my view, by people who are not part of the Judeo-Christian tradition, no disrespect to anyone who isn't, is about the role of women. And at this time in human history, in no other culture, to my knowledge, did women have the kind of status in which they were named as equal, really, let alone as leaders, the way Miriam was named as a leader, and soon we'll see Deborah or Judith being named as leaders. Or even the story of Ruth and Naomi, which we'll get to. This is the earliest, or certainly one of the earliest texts. I'm not aware of another one. I mean, there are women who are definitely interesting in, the Epic of Gilgamesh, but this is 3500 BCE to like 1500 BCE. And I just can't think of other texts in which women appear as leaders, as heads of families or communities, as judges, as warriors, as composers, like Miriam was. The individuality of women, the status of women is really unique in the world at this time in this text, and women are named repeatedly in this census of the important people in this community. The other thing I do want you to note, and the 1560 Geneva Bible commentators definitely noted it, is that God had increased the number of these people. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. They started out a tiny handful of people fleeing from Egypt. And wow, so many trolls. And now 38 or 39 years after leaving as slaves from Egypt, they're like over 100,000 people, possibly 244,000. I didn't quite get the total. Let's see. Anyway, it's a huge number of people, especially for that time, a real army, the census of all the congregation. And they're really counting just men, 20 and older. And it's still 6 figures of people. You'd have to kind of add them all up to get the total count. So those counted of them were 23,000. Yeah, that's just one tribe. Now, the other thing I want you to note is line 64. Among these, there was no man who'd been included in the census of Moses and Aaron when they counted the children of Israel in the Sinai desert. For the Lord had said to them, they shall surely die in the desert, and no one was left of them but Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun. Now I'm going to read that in Hebrew because it's really important. What it's saying is, you remember there had been a census in Exodus when Moses and Aaron were organizing the people. You remember that chapter. It was just as tedious. I'm sorry, Lord. It was just as slow going or, detail oriented as this one, but it's a totally different group of names, I believe, and whether there are some ancestral names in there that echo from previously, the point is no one was left from that generation. God kept them in the desert for 39 years so that the older generation that had worshiped the golden calf and betrayed him that way would die out and not enter the promised land. So he needed a whole new generation that had not betrayed him. Only Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun, were left because I think in earlier chapters they had done as God commanded, especially about the scouting into Israel, into Canaan, as I recall. So it definitely is God saying, you blew it. The generation previously, he delayed them, for 39 years until that generation had died out, which is intense, right? We're definitely seeing that you don't mess with God's will, like serious things happen. Ube'ele, and in these, lo haya ish, there was not a man, mipkudei Moshe, from the census of Moses, ve'Aaron, and Aaron HaKohen, the priest, asher pakdu, an echo, which were counted when they counted et bnei Israel b'midbar Sinai, the children of Israel in the desert of Sinai. Because Amar Adonai lahem, said God to them, mot yamutu, again that intensifier, the same root, mavet is death, mot is kind of a poetic version of the word death, yamutu, they will die, bamidbar, in the desert, velo notar mehem ish, and there will not be remaining from them a man, Ki'im Kalev, except Caleb ben Jephunneh, the son of Jephunneh, the Yoshua ben Nun, and Joshua, the son of Nun, meaning who will live to see and enter the land of Israel. And I'm going to just look very fast because lots of people have lots of things to say. Let's look very, very fast at the Revised Standard Version. Share the screen. Share the screen. Here we are, the Revised Standard Version. And you can see the screen. After the plague, the Lord said, take a census, and it's all pretty straightforward. And then they name them all. I'm not going to read all of that. You can see it. It's all the same names. I just want to get to where there's some narrative. These are the sons of Ephraim. These are the sons of Joseph. And you remember, the sons of Binyamin, you remember those names, Joseph and Benjamin, from the story of Joseph and Benjamin, Joseph and the coat of many colors, who was almost murdered by his brothers who were jealous of him many generations ago. And Benjamin, who loved him and whom he recognized when when the family went down to Egypt to ask for help during a famine. So all these stories are now coming together. These lineages are kind of interweaving. We remember Joseph. We remember Benjamin. And Naphtali. So this was the number of the people of Israel, 601,730. That's a lot. That's like a small city. It's a lot for that time. And to these, the land shall be divided for inheritance according to the number of names. To a large tribe you shall give a large inheritance, and to a small tribe you shall give a small inheritance. Every tribe shall be given its inheritance according to its numbers. That's fine. These were those numbered by Moshe and Eleazar the priest. But among these, there was not a man of those numbered by Moshe and Aaron the priest who had numbered the people of Israel in the wilderness at Sinai. For the Lord had said of them, they shall die in the wilderness. There was not left a man of them except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. So it's pretty accurate. I've got to hand it to the RSV this time around. That chapter is quite accurate. But there we are. God is directing that there be a census preparatory to the children of Israel moving into the promised land and taking possession of it. And one reason, I mean, this is very interesting. There are so many things that are new in human society. One of the things you see here is the avoidance in advance of conflict and warfare via law. So God is literally creating a contract or a will, as I said, in which you get this and you get this and you get this. And it's going to be this big, and you're a smaller tribe, so you get that, and it's going to be smaller. So as to avoid what was absolutely endemic at this period and location, well, everywhere in human history, which was nonstop territorial conflict, especially because this was still a grazing society, right? They're not yet farmers. They're nomads. They're Bedouins with sheep and goats. That's their wealth. And so there's constant conflict around grazing sites and water in those societies. And so God kind of in advance is saying, I want it to be a peaceful settling of the land. I don't want you to fight among yourselves. You take this, and I'm putting it in writing almost. And that's a new thing. Again, it's a new way of doing human business. There have definitely been contracts in Egypt or agreements, and there have been agreements in, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Gilgamesh, surrounding civilizations. But this kind of narrative law, I haven't seen at this time in history. Let's take a look at what people are saying. So I think I posted this because it was so nice. I too was converted as an adult and appreciate your open approach to understanding the scriptures. Thank you. I'm very grateful to you for that. And that's very cool. And Jersey Show, that's funny, says God learning. Is God knowing, all-knowing or not? This train of thought contradicts the message of Christ. #Zionism @Judaism. I'm not sure if you were with us when I asked that question. Can God be learning and all-knowing at the same time? Is there a way in which time works on God's level that can be true and we can't understand it? Because he certainly seems like he's learning with us in these texts. It does contradict Christianity and especially Catholicism, which has the idea of infallibility and of, well, certainly the Hebrew Bible has the idea of omniscience. God knows everything. God created everything. God created time. God knows the future. In fact, one of the prayers we sing is Yodea, a thing, bikadmato, in advance of its occurring. Kodem means beforehand, in its beforehandness. So God is definitely able to foresee everything, create everything, enact everything, encompass everything in the Hebrew tradition, And it's not Jewish theology that I'm raising when I say it looks like God's learning. It's my own humble English major interpretation of this text, in which, in some ways, maybe for our sake, right? Maybe it's his drama for our sake, but the relationship between God and people, and if you haven't joined us earlier, this has been a continual developing theme, is constantly being enriched. And there's a feedback loop. It's like, machine learning, right? People are learning from God, but God also seems to be learning how to be a God to people, or to this people, and make adjustments and try things that differently that didn't work the first time. Maybe it's for our sake. I don't know. But unlike, and I said this yesterday, unlike in other religions, in Judaism, which is for everyone, not to proselytize, but just to say, if you're drawn to this idea, I think you're welcome to it. You are encouraged to ask questions, to speculate, to explore, to express confusion or doubt or uncertainty about what a text means. That's the rabbinical tradition, and that's also the study of Torah, people sitting around arguing about what something means. We've been doing it for thousands of years, and it's not considered heretical. It's considered a way of honoring God, to really engage with, question, wrestle with his text. Let me give you an example. A woman last night who joined us said that she was feeling lost and couldn't find God because she'd sadly lost her daughter. Her daughter had passed away. And I didn't have any wisdom for her, because I don't know deeply enough what the Torah says about loss and grief. We'll get to Job, of course, but that's a difficult enough text to understand. And so I asked my Chabad rabbi, and he's going to get me an answer. But it's okay to ask, right? Like, it's okay in the Jewish tradition, and you see this in the Hebrew Bible, to say to God, I'm lost, I can't find you. I'm too sad to reach you. I'm too sad to pray to you, help me out. Look at Moses. I mean, I bring this up all the time, but maybe you haven't been with us for the earlier chapters. Moses is always saying to God, I can't do it. I can't do what you're asking me to do. I don't speak well. And I always cite this. God said, I made your mouth. I know who you are. I know what your strengths and weaknesses are. Trust me, I'll get you through it. But we're not told to just receive instruction in this tradition. We're told to, Moses argues with God. God's ready to wipe out the children of Israel, and Moses negotiates with him. And it's like the second or third time someone's negotiating with God. Back when God was about to wipe out Sodom and Gomorrah, there's a similar negotiation. If I find 30 good men, will you spare the city? If I find 10 good men, will you spare the city? So we're allowed to do that. It's not considered disrespectful at all. It's actually considered respectful. God wants us to, in this tradition, to join us absolutely out of free will, and not like zombies or robots. I'm not saying other religions are like that. I'm just saying, in particular, the Hebrew Bible and then the rabbinical tradition says, if you're not sure, ask, and if you want to bring your concerns, questions, even your arguments to God, you can do that. It's not heretical. At that point that you understand God's will, you should do it, right? For sure. But you're allowed to have a journey to get there. To me, I think this is the meaning of, Jacob wrestling with an angel who turned out to have been God during a very difficult night before he's preparing to meet his brother who might kill him after a long separation. He doesn't know if he's going to die the next day. He doesn't know if his family will be wiped out. And he wrestles all night with this angel. And to me, that's a metaphor for, like, God encourages us to wrestle with what he puts before us. And in that parable, it's so it reads like so that Jacob would be strengthened by having wrestled with an angel or with God all night. And to me, that's a metaphor. We get stronger as we hash out our relationship to this text and ask questions about it and say things like, I don't get it. How can God be good if he wiped out all these innocent animals and children? Like, these are totally legitimate questions to ask in the Jewish tradition. And I don't think it minimizes the role of God. Honestly, I think it strengthens us as people who can approach God with free will and having wrestled with our questions and doubts, or wrestling with them all the time. Because it's hard to be human, it's hard to walk this path and have so many questions, not be able to bring them, but God encourages us in the Hebrew text to bring them to him, and not to pretend we don't have them. So it's different from other faith traditions. I'm not saying it's better or worse. For me, it's comfortable, but I was raised in it. Let's see. So Mahinur Sarur says, it was stolen and restored. All Egyptians will not give a grain of sand to the crazy settler colonists. The Sinai is not a barren land now, is it? So keep dreaming. It is the grave of any Zionist who will try. Thank you, Mr. or Miss Sarur. It was stolen and restored. Okay, so you're talking about the Sinai. This is a tough discussion because the truth is, historically, that part of the world has been occupied and reoccupied and reoccupied by so many different peoples over the course of its history. So I'm more interested in how do we make peace and live together in harmony and mutual respect than in litigating who was here first, because the Sinai, was owned by many different people. All of Palestine belonged to the Ottoman Empire before the partition of 1948. So it's, and before that there were the Seleucids, and before that the Crusaders, and, before that the Romans, and before that the Babylonians and the Persians. That area is a crossroads, and it has been occupied, reoccupied, reoccupied. All I'm noting is that the journey, and please let me be clear, Ms. Sarur, I'm not reading this ancient text as a justification for any geopolitical position or boundaries today. I am just reading it, okay, in and of itself, the way I looked at the Pfizer documents, primary source documents. What you want to make of it is up to you. But I think it's interesting that the reading of it is being erased in modern religion, because one inference I have is that it does so clearly promise whoever wrote it. You could say humans wrote it, and it has no sacred value at all. Challenging, because even in Islam, Judaism is one of the Abrahamic religions that Islam is supposed to reverence. Moses is a revered figure, just like Jesus is, and Mary in Islam. But I'm just noting that over and over and over again, this text does say to this tribe, this is your home. Make of that what you will. You could say it's all nonsense, but this text says that, okay? We can wrestle with that, or you can ignore it, but this text says it over and over. And I'm not making a case. I want peace. I want a two-state solution. I'm just reading an ancient text, okay? Crazy settler colonists, I don't think that's a fact-based phrase. I think that's rhetoric that's kind of inflammatory. I've always spoken up for peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. I've always spoken up for a two-state solution, and I don't call Palestinian activists crazy. The Sinai is not a barren land now. That's awesome. Is it? No. So keep dreaming. It is the grave of any Zionist who will try. Well, that's a threat of violence, and I prefer not to have threats of violence in this very peaceful reading. So thank you for your contribution. If you want to continue to be part of this discussion, I'd love it. I think a Muslim perspective, if you are Muslim, is very valuable, but please don't make threats of violence. Alrighty, so let's go on. What's the purpose? Let's see. Anyone else experiencing interruption? That's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know. Jamie Jimenez says, what's the purpose of these readings? Just to read them, just so you know what's in the Hebrew Bible and the 1560 Geneva Bible, which is a beautiful, accurate translation. And also I've been comparing both of those translations to typical Revised Standard Version, modern translation, Christian translation, which has many, many mistranslations. And excuse me, the headline of the mistranslations is they almost all tend to make God less adorable than he is in the original, and also to falsely prioritize the role of organized religion and the priest. Whereas in the Hebrew original, God is completely available to anyone at all times. He's visible often, he shows up, he's accessible, you can chat with him. You don't need a priest, you don't need a synagogue, you don't need a church. And that's kind of written out of a lot of modern translations. Let's see. And now we have another argument. Is this for real? And to prove that Jews are the chosen ones, are you suggesting that Israel should expand even more? All that story is made up. You know, my friend, I can't say who wrote the Torah. I can't. All I can do is read it. And when you say, is this for real? I don't know what religion you are, but for 2,000 years, Christians have been reading the Old Testament. It's only recently that Christians have been encouraged not to read the Old Testament. But for 2,000 years, this was Christians' Bible too. So yeah, it's for real. And I'm not making a case that Jews are the chosen ones. I do think it's important to hear for yourselves the way that the notion of chosen people is phrased by God, because it's very different from the way, I'm sorry, but ignorant people mischaracterize it. As I've said before, when God in the Hebrew Bible talks about, I'm choosing you, it's tasking you with a responsibility. It's not you're better. It's not I love you more. Nothing like that. It's like, this is your job. 613 commandments. You have to keep the tent of meeting going. You have to, walk in righteousness. You have to communicate my law to the rest of the world, which miraculously, again, did happen, in my view, through Yeshua, this radical rabbi who took these teachings and distilled them for everyone, and also other modern people who are drawn to, of whatever religion, who read the Old Testament. It really did happen. This tiny sect did transmit God's law all over the world. Interestingly, we were exiled and scattered all over the world. Well, the transmission of God's law came with us, but also, was manifested all over the world through the figure of Yeshua, this radical rabbi who walked around in Palestine. Or actually Judea and Galilee at that time. So I'm not reading the Hebrew Bible to back up any geopolitical position. I just started reading it 2 years ago because I had a very strong prompting that I needed to. I thought it was kind of a quixotic, weird thing to feel like God wanted me to do. I thought no one would pay attention. Now we're in the top 100 or 200 podcasts for Judaism in many countries around the world, including the Republic of Congo, which I think is super cool. But all I'm doing is reading an ancient text, just reading it and comparing it to modern versions. What's your take on the Leviticus roots of the righteous poor, self-exiles of Maccabean period in Qumran, land of Onias, etc., becoming the roots of apocalyptic literature that leads to Christianity? Sasha Dix. That is a fascinating question. I kind of know what you're talking about. I'm definitely studying that. But I do think and believe, and I'm reading books by a historian named Robert Eisenman, others, about the Qumran community which was this group of zealots, really like very, very, very rigorous Jews who were holding themselves apart from the rest of society to maintain absolute purity. And there's a strong suggestion that they were early Jewish followers of the brother of Jesus. And there are mentions of like the righteous teacher in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's so interesting to me that the Catholic Church hid some of the Dead Sea Scrolls until Robert Eisenman was able to pry them out of their grasp. And they do seem to suggest that there were Jewish Christians led by Jesus's brother who may have been in Qumran following a version of Messiah that is much more, and I talked about this yesterday, much more aligned with the tradition of the Messiah in the Hebrew Bible, the version of the Messiah that Jews were expecting in the first century when Jesus showed up and, implied that he was the Messiah, and other people said it as well. And the version that this group was pursuing was nationalist, because the Jews at that time were under severe oppression by the Roman Empire, and it was a Messiah that would redeem them to a sovereign nation the way they had been under Solomon and David, and also militaristic, a physical like warrior like Bar Kokhba, who was led a Maccabean revolt later. And it was a different kind of Messiah, right? It wasn't the theological Messiah of later Christian teaching. So it does seem like Judaism in the first century was one kind of Jewish Christian whole, and then it kind of separated. With Paul's teaching, this one went off in this direction and was preached to pagans as well as Jews all over the Roman Empire and distant lands in Asia Minor. And this one got cut off and eradicated. And I just think that's so interesting. The Jewish Christians in Qumran who may have followed Jesus's brother. So I don't know if that is exactly what you're talking about, but to me, it's very intriguing, because to me, I don't see why Jews wouldn't have followed Yeshua's message in that time largely, right? Not all of it, for reasons we talked about yesterday. God says clearly in the Hebrew Bible, no gods but me, no gods but me. So they can't follow it the way later Christian theology says you need to follow Jesus, but they could have followed Jesus's teachings in Qumran in a different version, if that's what you're referencing, Sasha. Let's see. It was stolen and restored. That's pretty much it for the comments that I can see. So we've gone a little bit over, but we tend to be doing that these days. I don't see any other questions or comments. So I will just say I'm pretty proud to have done this 3 nights in a row, because, I'm trying to read this every day for 6 days at a time and then take a break on Shabbat. So I could try to do an early taping tomorrow, and then that'll be 4 days in a row before Shabbat begins. But thank you. And I hope I've answered all your questions, but I have a million questions. The goal of this reading isn't to answer all the questions, because only God has all the answers to the questions. But I think it's okay to have the questions, to reason together, to question together. And, there they are waiting for the okay to enter the promised land. I do, before I go, kind of want to show you a map. Let me see if I can call one up. Map of children of Israel in Moses's time. I want to see if I can show you exactly where they are, because it's very, very interesting. Tribes of map. Okay. So let me show you. I'm going to share my screen, and you can see this. Let me show you this one, actually. I will share this one. I will stop that one, and I will share this one. Okay. So here you can see the 12 tribes of Israel around 1200. So it's later, right? It's the book of Joshua. But can you see this map? Can you see it close up? Good. So I'm going to go into this map and try to enlarge it. But the children of Israel right now are about, there's Jericho. Can you see where my little pointer is? My little, what is that called? Magnifying glass. So this is what we've just read, right? These are the 12 tribes. And this is what's been kind of worked out for them in this chapter. There's Manasseh, and you see it goes all the way over into modern day Jordan and looks like southern Syria. There's Naphtali. It goes now way up into what's modern Lebanon. Asher goes way up into what's modern Lebanon. The cities of Sidon and, well, certainly Sidon is in modern Lebanon now, right? Zevulun, okay, that's modern Israel. But Manasseh, covers, don't get mad at me, it's just history, the west bank of the Jordan River and the east bank of the Jordan River. So it includes what is now the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. So it includes what's now Palestinian territories. This is now modern Israel. Dan is at the very edge of the Negev there. And so Philistia is, well, that's now modern Israel, but you can see Gaza was a city. 1200 to 1050 BC, the book of Joshua, Gaza was a city. And this is where the Amalekites lived, right? And here's Moab, right? So they've come up from the Sinai, the wilderness of Tzin. You remember the last few chapters, they've been in the wilderness of Tzin. They've been sending spies in or scouts to check out the promised land here, what would become Judah's land and Benjamin's land, Dan's land, but it wasn't yet. It was filled with other people. And the Edom is where, and Moab are where they've had if I read this correctly, the discussions, they're camped around here, if I read this correctly, or heading up this direction. And the Moabite king is the one who asked Balaam to curse them. And so then they're going to head up further north, and it's on Mount Nebo, as I recall, that Moshe is going to die looking out over the plain, heading, looking toward Jerusalem, but not able to cross over into the promised land. And so that's where they are. And it's so interesting. There's Jericho. And again, I highlight that because Jericho is such an ancient city. So right now they're camped all around here and waiting to go in to this land that God has promised them. So that's just really interesting. A lot of that land is no longer modern Israel. A little bit of it, like bits of Ashdod and Ashkelon, are modern Israel, whereas they weren't part of the 12 tribes of Israel. But this is settlement that goes back 3,200 years, right? 3,000 years. So it's really something to look at. And they've come a long way, man. They've come a long way. And it's just very interesting to imagine where they are. And I have been, of course, to Jordan, beautiful country, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. And I've been to those vistas, as I mentioned, where you can see across, you can see the Dead Sea, you can see the lights of Jericho, this very ancient city, which is, again, no longer in modern Israel. It's in Palestine now. And you can see all the way to the Judean hills. You can't really see Jerusalem, but you can see the hills that surround Jerusalem. And it's just one of the most moving and kind of heartbreaking sights in the world. It feels so uplifted, but you can really imagine being Moshe and looking across, and God is saying to him, you're going to die here. You're not going to cross over. And and he dies, seeing this promised land, but never setting foot in it after all he did to bring his people out of Egypt with God's mighty hand, as the text always says, all the way through the desert, all the way up the wilderness into the northern wilderness, into where the Moabites are. Now we're in what's southern Jordan, modern southern Jordan. We're looking across into a country fully occupied by their tribes, right? And God's like, a whole new generation has risen. I'm going to bring you over into that, but only 2 of the previous generation, not even including Moses or Aaron, are going to live to cross over. Very moving. Again, I'm not making any claims for it. It's just the text from, millennia ago. All right. So thank you all. I hope I've answered a lot of your questions. And, I hope this has been helpful. And I'll see you tomorrow, Numbers 27. Have a wonderful night. Thank you. And remember, please do support this work if you care about it. It takes a lot of people to get these videos out. I think it's very moving that we're one of the top Judaism podcasts in places like the Republic of Congo and Indonesia at times, Australia, Canada, the United States sometimes. But it takes a lot of people and a lot of resources to get that out there. If you care about these readings, please do support us by going over to Substack. Dr. Naomi Wolf reads the Geneva Bible. It's on my page Outspoken, and become a paying subscriber if you would, or you can make a one-time donation over at dailyclout.io, or a recurring donation. It all helps. Thank you so much. Take care. Thank you.